Emily Parker had never planned on crossing any lines, not even in her thoughts. But the truth was that it all began on a quiet Friday evening when she stepped into the lakeshore hotel lobby and felt her life shift without warning. The moment she walked through the glass doors, she sensed something she couldn't name, like a soft pull in her chest, a strange awareness she hadn't felt in years. The lobby glowed with warm lights, polished floors, and calm music playing somewhere unseen. She had come only to confirm details for her charity group's upcoming fundraiser. Nothing more. But the second she saw Ethan Cole standing near the front desk, smiling as if he had been waiting for someone to brighten his day, she felt the world move ever so slightly under her feet. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who made her heart race in an obvious way. He had no dramatic charm, no loud confidence. He was simply warm, gentle, and he looked at her like she mattered the moment she arrived. That alone felt dangerous. Emily forced herself to stay focused. But every time Ethan asked a question or laughed at something she said, her heart reacted before her mind could control it. She should have ended the conversation quickly, confirmed the event details, and left. Instead, she found herself lingering, asking unnecessary questions, making small jokes just to hear him laugh again. She told herself it wasn't wrong, they were simply talking. Two adults having a harmless conversation. But deep inside, she knew she was enjoying something she had no business enjoying. That was the first line she crossed. A small one, a soft one, but a line nonetheless. She drove home afterward feeling both lighter and more unsettled than before. Her husband Daniel was away again for work, this time in Seattle. He had left early that morning with barely enough time to kiss her goodbye. She had gotten used to his rushed departures, to the tired smiles, to the late-night texts saying, "Long day, talk tomorrow." She loved him. She truly did. But love had grown quiet in their house, predictable, a little distant. And when she walked into their empty home that night, the quiet felt heavy instead of peaceful. The next week, she tried to push the memory of Ethan out of her mind. She focused on her art shop, on orders she needed to pack, on small errands she had been putting off. She told herself that the moment in the hotel lobby meant nothing, that she was simply tired and needed rest. But when her charity group asked her to check the decoration samples for the event, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed her keys so quickly it startled even her. She drove to the hotel again, pretending it was only about work. But she knew long before she pulled into the parking lot that she was hoping to see him again. That was the second line she crossed. And this time she stepped over it knowingly. When she arrived, she felt that strange mix of nerves and excitement she hadn't felt since she was much younger. Ethan was there, arranging some brochures, and when he saw her, his face lit up in a way that made her chest tighten. "Emily," he said, like her name held some kind of warmth he needed. She felt it too. That spark between them, subtle but undeniably real. They discussed the decorations only briefly before drifting into a longer conversation about books. Travel, music, small childhood memories. He listened with such attention, nodding softly, asking questions as if he wanted to understand her, not just reply to her. It was the kind of connection she didn't expect to feel with anyone else. And when she finally left, her hands were trembling slightly on the steering wheel the next day. Her phone buzzed while she was organizing new paintings in her shop. She wiped her hands and checked it, expecting a message from Daniel. Maybe a quick "miss you" or "dinner tonight." Instead, she saw Ethan's name. Her breath caught. The message was simple, innocent even. "Hope today feels lighter than yesterday. You deserve some ease." But something about the message made her pause for a long time. Someone had noticed her stress. Someone had thought about her, not out of responsibility, but out of genuine care. She didn't respond, telling herself that answering would pull her deeper into something she couldn't explore. But she saved the message anyway, reading it more times than she should. And that's silent emotional. Unseen by anyone but her was the third line she crossed a few days later. Rain poured across the small town like a soft curtain. Emily rushed into her favorite coffee shop after a long morning at work. The place smelled like caramel and freshly baked muffins. She found an empty corner seat and wrapped her hands around the warm cup, letting herself breathe. And then she heard his voice. Ethan was at the counter ordering a drink. He hadn't seen her yet. Her heart leaped before she could stop it. Should she wave? Should she hide? But before she could decide, he turned and their eyes met. He smiled immediately. The kind of smile that removes every doubt, every polite barrier, every heavy thought. He walked over without hesitation. "I feel like I'm running into you more than fate should allow," he joked. His hair still damp from the rain. She laughed. But it felt too soft, too full of something she didn't want to name. He asked if he could sit. She said yes before she thought about it. They talked for 2 hours about their days, about little frustrations, about dreams they had quietly pushed aside over the years. The way he listened made her feel seen. Really seen? When she talked, he didn't glance at his phone. He didn't rush. He didn't act distracted. He held her words like they mattered. And when she spoke about her worries that Daniel's long work trips made her feel alone, that she was afraid she was becoming a background character in her own marriage, Ethan didn't judge. He offered support, not solutions. Comfort, not criticism. "You carry so much alone," he said softly. "You shouldn't have to." That sentence stayed with her long after she left the cafe. On the drive home, she felt a strange ache, like she had stepped far beyond where she should be. Because that meeting, that connection, that emotional safety she felt with him, that was the fourth line she crossed. And she felt it all the way down to her bones. For days afterward, she moved through her home in a quiet, careful way, as if she might bump into her own secret if she wasn't cautious. She didn't tell Daniel anything. She didn't know how. He was still away, traveling from one city to another, his voice tired during late-night calls. She didn't blame him. He worked hard to provide for them. But she wished, desperately, that he would slow down long enough to look at her the way he used to ask her how she was, to notice that something inside her was cracking open in a way she couldn't control. Everything came crashing down the night. Daniel returned earlier than expected. Emily was sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, staring at Ethan's name glowing on the screen. He had sent a simple message asking if she was okay. She hadn't answered yet. She didn't know what to say. Did she owe him a reply? Did replying mean she was choosing him? Did ignoring him mean she was pretending she felt nothing? Her head spun. Then the front door opened. Daniel walked in, tired but smiling, dropping his suitcase by the wall. "Hey, Em," he said warmly. "Surprised?" She jumped, quickly locking her phone, her heart pounding. She tried to act normal, but her breath was uneven. Daniel leaned down and kissed her forehead. And for a moment she felt guilt sweep through her like a storm she couldn't outrun. He didn't see the name on her screen. He didn't know how close she had come to something neither of them could take back. He only saw his wife, sitting alone, waiting for him. Emily smiled at him, but it was weak, forced. Inside she felt shaken. Because that moment, her sitting on the couch with another man's unread message lighting her screen. Her heart racing not at her husband's return, but at the emotional tangle she had created. That was the fifth line she crossed. The line that scared her the most. The line that made her realize she had been slipping inch by inch into a place she never imagined she could reach. As Daniel unpacked in the bedroom, chatting casually about the meetings he had attended, Emily sat there frozen, staring at her darkened phone screen, knowing she had reached a turning point. She loved her husband, but she had opened her heart to someone else, even if only in small ways. And now she didn't know what to do with the truth settling heavy inside her. Part 1 ends with Emily caught between two worlds, one built from years of love, stability, and promises, and the other built from moments of connection she didn't expect but couldn't forget. She didn't know what the future would hold. She only knew she was standing on the edge of something that could change everything. Emily Parker spent the next few days in a daze. The thrill of seeing Ethan, the warmth of his attention, and the guilt of her hidden feelings twisted inside her like a storm. She tried to return to normal life, work at her art shop, grocery, shopping, cooking dinners for Daniel, but every task felt muted. Even her laughter seemed shallow. She would catch herself thinking about Ethan's smile, his voice, the way he made her feel like she mattered in a way she hadn't felt in years. And yet, when Daniel called at night asking about her day, she answered as if nothing had changed. She couldn't let him see the mess of emotions she was living with. She had crossed lines she shouldn't have, but Daniel didn't know. He didn't see the trembling in her hands or the longing in her eyes. And that was both a relief and a weight she couldn't shake. By midweek, Emily realized that avoiding Ethan entirely wasn't possible. He was part of the same community, her charity group, even the small cafe she loved. She told herself she was overthinking, that maybe it was just loneliness speaking, but deep down she knew it wasn't that simple. Emotional connection, like that, didn't disappear. It lingered, quietly whispering. And she couldn't stop listening. Then, one rainy afternoon, everything changed again. She had closed her shop early, tired of pretending she was okay. The sky had turned dark and rain poured in soft sheets, drumming against the windows. She decided to grab a coffee before heading home, hoping the warmth would calm her scattered mind. The bell above the shop door rang, and she looked up, expecting another customer. But it wasn't a customer. It was Ethan. His hair damp, a small paper bag in his hand, eyes meeting hers instantly. "I was nearby," he said softly. "Thought you might like some coffee." Her heart raced. Should she say no? Should she walk away? The lines she had crossed felt razor sharp now, threatening to cut her peace. Yet, against her better judgment, she unlocked the shop door and let him in. He didn't smile in a flirtatious way. He smiled as if he was glad to see her, and it nearly undid her self-control. She poured coffee for both of them, and they sat on stools among the paintings, the air smelling faintly of oils and fresh paper. They talked quietly, not about flirtation or romance, but about life, about stress, about dreams, about the invisible weight they carried every day. Emily found herself speaking truths she hadn't said aloud to anyone, not even Daniel. She spoke about feeling lonely, even in her own marriage, about the fear that her life had become a routine, predictable and safe, but empty. Ethan listened without judgment, nodding, offering gentle words that made her feel understood. He didn't push, he didn't touch her hand, not yet. He simply acknowledged her feelings with kindness. And that, more than anything, made her feel alive again. Emily realized in that moment that Ethan wasn't the danger. The danger was her own heart. The danger was the awareness that she could fall emotionally, that her marriage, her love for Daniel was not enough to stop her from longing for someone else. But Ethan's presence also brought clarity. He made her realize what she truly wanted, not a secret romance, not betrayal, but to feel fully seen, fully appreciated, fully alive. And that was something she hadn't felt with Daniel in years, not because he didn't love her, but because life, work, and routine had dulled the edges of their connection. The coffee meeting ended quietly. Ethan handed her the paper bag, said a soft goodbye, and left before lingering too long. Emily closed the door behind him, feeling an ache of relief and sorrow at the same time. Relief because nothing physical had happened, because the line she feared crossing had not been crossed. Sorrow because she had felt a connection so intense that leaving it behind made her chest ache. She sat for a while, staring at the rain through the window, thinking about choices, about love, about loyalty, and about the fragile lines that kept her marriage intact. The very next day, Daniel returned unexpectedly early from a business trip. Emily was in the living room sorting through some letters when he walked in. She jumped slightly, hiding the small phone she had been holding, Ethan's name glowing faintly on the screen. Daniel smiled, tired but warm, and immediately she felt a wave of guilt. Her heart sank at the thought of the 5 emotional lines she had crossed without his knowledge. She forced a smile and stood to greet him, trying to seem normal. Dropped his suitcase and walked toward her the way he always did, arms open, smiling, unaware of the emotional storm raging inside her. "Hey, Em, thought I'd surprise you for lunch," he said. Emily felt her hand slip from the phone, her pulse racing. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Her body relaxed slightly when he hugged her, but her mind stayed alert, aware of the delicate balance she was maintaining. Daniel had no idea how close she had come to falling emotionally for someone else. He had no idea she had been tempted, distracted, and conflicted, and that was terrifying. And yet, his presence also grounded her. She realized in that moment that love wasn't just a spark, it was choice, effort, patience, and forgiveness. And she had to decide what she wanted before anything broke irreparably. Lunch passed in a haze of conversation. Daniel talked about his trip, meetings, and upcoming deadlines. Emily responded, careful not to reveal anything. The 5 emotional lines she had crossed remained unspoken, hidden in the quiet corners of her mind. She realized that some truths were dangerous, not because they were wrong, but because timing mattered. And the timing was not right. After lunch, Daniel asked casually, "Is everything okay between us?" Emily froze for a moment, feeling the weight of that question. This was the moment she had feared. Her heart beat faster, her mind racing with memories of Ethan's gentle attention. The coffee shop conversation, the hotel lobby, the texts. She knew she couldn't tell Daniel everything not yet. She couldn't burden him with feelings she hadn't fully understood herself. Instead, she chose honesty in the smallest, safest way. "I've been lonely, Daniel," she admitted quietly. "I miss us. I miss feeling seen." Daniel's expression changed. Surprise, then guilt, then something close to heartbreak. He sat down beside her and took her hand, holding it gently, as if afraid it might break. "I thought I was doing the right thing working for our future, but I forgot that you are my present," he said. His voice was soft, vulnerable, and Emily felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she realized that their love wasn't lost, had just been buried under exhaustion, routine, and silence. They talked for hours that evening, revisiting memories, sharing frustrations, and expressing desires they hadn't spoken aloud for years. Emily spoke carefully, choosing words that revealed her heart without mentioning Ethan, without creating unnecessary hurt. Daniel listened fully, without distraction, offering reassurance and understanding. For the first time in months, Emily felt the warmth she had craved, the recognition that she was valued and loved in return. Later that night, as Emily locked the shop and prepared for bed, she noticed a message from Ethan. "I'm rooting for your happiness. Whatever you choose." She read it and smiled faintly. There was no bitterness, no longing, just acceptance. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Ethan had taught her something vital. Some connections exist not to last forever, but to remind you what you truly need. Emily lay in bed that night beside Daniel, feeling a mix of relief, hope, and quiet sadness. She had crossed the line 5 times, but she had stopped herself before it became something irreversible. She had almost lost herself in fleeting connection, almost betrayed her marriage, but she had chosen differently at the end. Daniel had seen her heart without fully knowing the risks she had taken. And that was enough to begin rebuilding the love that had been quietly slipping away. The days that followed were different. Emily and Daniel started small but meaningful routines. Dinner together, evening walks, sharing stories from their day without distractions. Emily felt alive again, but this time in a way that was grounded, safe, and real. She didn't need Ethan to feel seen anymore. She needed Daniel to see her fully, and now he did. And she realized that love could be renewed, not just found, even after years of quiet distance. Emily learned that emotional temptation wasn't shameful, it was a signal of what was missing. But acting on it was a choice. And she chose her marriage. She chose the man who loved her, imperfectly but truly. She chose to nurture what had almost been lost. And in doing so, she discovered that love could survive longing. That connection could survive distance. And that a woman could almost cross a line and still return home. Wiser and stronger. Some connections enter your life to teach you not to stay. Emily's story wasn't about betrayal or secrets. was about awareness, growth, and the courage to choose love over fleeting desire. She crossed lines, felt temptation, and faced her own heart's longing. But in the end, she didn't fall. She came home not to perfection, not to fantasy, but to real love, patient, enduring, and awake. And as she held Daniel's hand that night, listening to him breathe softly beside her, she realized that sometimes the greatest romance isn't the one that excites, but the one that survives and flourishes quietly, steadily, through choice and care.